So we're starting our video off on the login screen. If you don't already have an account, I recommend signing up. That way you can follow along with the video. It's really simple. You just enter an email address, a password, and then it's going to ask you if you want to create an account for ChatGPT 4, which is the paid version, which allows you access to plugins and a bunch of advanced features. But in today's video, we're just going to be looking at the free version, which is currently 3.5. So I'm going to log in. And I have two-factor set up, so I'll just see you on the other side. All right, so we made it past the login screen, and now we're greeted by this blank page. My screen may look slightly different than yours, depending on if you signed up for ChatGPT 4 or not. But again, this is a totally free version. We're only going to be focusing on 3.5. Now, to the left side of my screen, you're going to see this panel, and this is all of your history. So think of this as individual conversations that you had with ChatGPT previously. And what's really cool about this is each one of these, you're going to be able to go into and continue the conversation regardless of how long ago you've had it. Now, if I was working on a project 2 weeks ago, I paused it and I want to pick it back up again, that chatbot is actually going to remember what we were working on and how to continue the conversation. So it's really awesome. I recommend actually giving them custom names so that once you get to a point where you've had this for over a month or two, it can kind of become overwhelming when you're scrolling through and you don't remember which chat is actually which. Now, at the very bottom of the left-hand corner, we're also going to have this hamburger icon where you can click on it, and that's going to be your settings. So if you did pay for ChatGPT, that's how you access the plugins feature, the browse with Bing, all of the other beta features, and then you can continue by adding custom instructions for your chatbot so you don't have to constantly remind each chatbot individually what you want it to do. But we're just going to focus on the basics here. So let's dive in. So let's start off with a prompt that almost everyone starts with. It's the question and answer format. And what makes ChatGPT so great in this area is that it has a vast database of information to pull from, and it does so almost instantly. Now, you could replicate this with a quick Google search, and you may get a featured snippet at the top of the search engine result page, and it would answer your question in about 10 seconds. But what if that featured snippet isn't there? Well, then you have to search through an organic listing to find a website that is appealing to you. Then you have to read through an article that's most likely about 2,500 words, and then find the answer to your question. Whereas ChatGPT is going to give you a more direct answer pretty quickly. Another really cool thing is that we can continue this line of thought without having to go to another window, as we would in Google, and rinse and repeat the entire process. Here we can just simply ask it another question. So the next thing that we're going to be taking a look at is using ChatGPT for suggestions. Now, you can use this for anything. If you're interested in a certain type of food, you can ask it for suggestions based on that food. In this instance, I'm going to ask it for a suggestion based off of my favorite movie, which is Alien. So the reason I'm asking it to not just show me movies that are within the Alien franchise is because I don't want it to just generate a list based off of Aliens, Aliens 3, Prometheus, and so on and so forth. I want unique lists and unique answers. So let's take a look here. So we got The Thing, which is a classic, and it does give you a sense of paranoia and isolation, very similar to Alien. Event Horizon takes place on a similar vessel in deep space, and you're not entirely sure what's going on, and all chaos ensues. So I agree with that answer. Pandorum, very similar. Sunshine, another great example. Now, Life, I haven't actually seen, but it sounds like something I'd be interested in. So after this, I'm going to go do that. So another simple but effective way of using ChatGPT is through comparison. And in this instance, we're going to be looking at the differences between Filipino food and Spanish food, and I'm specifically looking for ingredients. Now, if you know anything about the two, there are some overlap due to the colonization that occurred. So I'm really interested to see what kind of breakdown ChatGPT gives us. So let's provide our prompt. So almost instantly, it's telling you that, yes, because there was colonization, there is going to be overlap between the two. So there are a lot of similarities. But we see quite a difference here in the cooking techniques, the flavors and seasonings. So if you wanted to prepare your food more Filipino style, this is what you would use versus Spanish. And then we also have a breakdown of spice and aromatics as well as indigenous ingredients. So it did a great job. I love a bullet point format because you can quickly identify the most important topics that are relevant to what you're looking for. So the next one we're going to be taking a look at is taking a very in-depth and detailed topic and breaking it down into digestible bits using an analogy so that someone who's unfamiliar with the topic can understand it regardless of their background. So the prompt I'm using is explain core web vitals and core web vitals metrics using an analogy that would make sense for someone unfamiliar with the concept. I want you to be clear and concise. So again, you see that it's breaking it down in an ordered list, a bullet point list, which is great because it's a fantastic way to, again, kind of relay the most important parts so your eyes are scanning. It's showing us what the LCP, the FID, and the CLS is. And for something like this, I will take this information and maybe I'll put it into a presentation where I'm presenting to the C-suite that's focused on digital marketing, but their background is not in digital marketing. So again, this is a really great way of taking a very either broad or very detailed subject matter and making it digestible for people who are unfamiliar with it. Now, the next one, and bear with me here, we're going to be taking a look at creative writing. And the prompt I'm giving ChatGPT is to write a birthday letter to my wife in the style of Terry Pratchett, using his unique wit, humor, and charm. So if you're creatively bankrupt and you don't know how to write a birthday letter, this would be a great way. Or, use it however you see fit. So this is a long one. I'm not going to bore you by sitting here and reading it, but let's just say that you've read through the whole thing and you don't really like it. And, it's not really using the correct terminology. It's not using Terry Pratchett's wit. So what I'm going to do is regenerate the text. And you can do that by simply coming down to this button and clicking regenerate. And what that's going to do is tell ChatGPT that either, you didn't like it or you're just looking for a different style of output, and it's going to give you something unique. So it's not necessarily going to match the first output. And if you want to take a look at what the first output is, maybe you like some bits from the first one and you like some from the second one and you want to kind of mend it too, you can just go back up and click the arrow to go back to 1 of 2 and then 2 of 2. And then ChatGPT is going to ask you for some feedback. Was this a better response? Was it worse? Was it the same? And, depending on how you feel about it, you can answer that. So that one goes out to all of the people who struggle to write birthday cards and well-wish cards and Valentine's Day cards. Good luck. ChatGPT is really great at summarizing things. And if you're on the paid account, you can ask ChatGPT 4 to use the Web Pilot plugin or Browse with Bing feature to actually crawl a URL. So you would just copy and paste the URL and it would do it for you. But because we are on the free version, what I did was just copy and paste a selection of text using OpenAI's documentation. And we're going to ask ChatGPT to analyze that text and provide a bullet point breakdown of all the most important parts. So it's doing a really great job. Again, we see our bullet points here. We've seen the bolded text, so our eyes are instantly drawn to those sections. And it's telling us that these parts are the most important out of everything that I provided it. So write clear instructions, provide reference text, all of these different things. Now, think about this from a standpoint of the time and energy it would take to read all of that documentation. I don't know, maybe it takes you 10, 15 minutes to evaluate it, but do you truly understand it during that time frame? Well, ChatGPT will break it down, again, in a way that you understand and in a bullet point format that is easy to digest, whereas the initial documentation isn't so. So let's take a look at getting ChatGPT to write a blog post. Now, the first step that we're going to try is just simply asking ChatGPT to write a blog post on visiting the Grand Canyon. And what most likely is going to occur is that we don't get the response that we're looking for. Because we didn't specify what we wanted from this article, it's just going to kind of spit out anything generic. And if we want to, we need to really start thinking about this as an iterative process. How can we refine it further? And the next step is to kind of go into that. How can we improve this? So in this version, we're going to start specifying what we want ChatGPT to actually write about. So we specified that this article is going to be about visiting the Grand Canyon, but specifically for first-time visitors. And I wanted ChatGPT to highlight essential tips, must-see spots, and any kind of recommended activities for first-time visitors. So let's take a look at what the output is. And you can already begin to see that this is more geared towards what I wanted. Whereas the first one, it just kind of gave us a generic overview of the Grand Canyon. It threw in some history. It wasn't truly refined in the way that I was looking for. But again, it didn't know what I was looking for because I didn't specify. Now let's see if we can even push it further. So now we have a third version, and we could take this further if we wanted to, but I think this is a really good place for this example. We're saying here, write a 15-paragraph blog post. So immediately we're telling ChatGPT how long we want it. So we're also refining it by asking ChatGPT to write an article specifically for families with children visiting the south rim of the Grand Canyon for the first time. This post should provide essential tips, highlighting family-friendly spots and recommending activities suitable for kids. The post should begin with an introduction to the Grand Canyon's south rim and conclude with closing thoughts and a call to action for readers to share their memories. My brand voice is a cross between National Geographic and Lonely Planet. My tone of voice is welcoming and inspiring. Write in clear and concise sentences. So immediately we see our title, and it's geared towards what we were looking for. A family adventure at the Grand Canyon's South Rim. Tips and must-see spots. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can see that this is already starting to shape up into a better article. We have our ordered list with our bolded headings. Now, if you wanted, you could ask ChatGPT to make them into a heading hierarchy. So in H2 and H3, that way you can just simply copy and paste this into your CMS. Let's see what else we have. All right, well, that's all we got. We did get 15 paragraphs, and because that's exactly what I looked for, but it did write a conclusion, and we do have our call to action here at the very end. Now, if you wanted to improve this, you could provide it with some internal links, and you could say, I want you to include a link using this anchor text, or simply ask it to provide you with an anchor text based on contextual clues. You could ask it for a meta title, a meta description. There are a whole number of ways that you could improve this, but this is a really strong launching pad. Continuing with the blog post theme, another idea that we can try is to create an HTML table, or just simply a regular table that you can copy and paste. Now, this works best with compare and contrast style articles, but if you wanted a table of contents of sorts, maybe you have sections in column A and then a description of what each section is in column B. That way, when a user arrives to your page, they can quickly find what section is most relevant to them and then scroll down to that section. So it's a really great way to improve the user experience of your page. So I found a really interesting article about the advantages of vertical farming, and it was perfect for our compare and contrast. So I'm asking ChatGPT to please create an HTML table comparing and contrasting the advantages of vertical farming over traditional farming, because that's what this blurb that I've copied and pasted is all about. So it's wrapped it in HTML doc type, and it's actually given us a little bit of CSS to style it, which is fine. And here we have an H2 describing what the table is going to be about, the advantages of vertical farming versus traditional farming. And we can see at the table header, we have advantage, vertical farming, traditional farming. So immediately we know that this is going to be a compare and contrast style table. So this is a really great example to just improve the overall visibility of your page, and again, kind of give the reader another outlet to find information that they're looking for on your website. So for our next prompt, we're actually going to be asking ChatGPT to build a PowerPoint presentation, or at least one singular slide within a PowerPoint presentation. And the prompt itself, I'm asking ChatGPT to design a compare and contrast table highlighting the advantages of vertical farming over traditional farming. The table should be beginner friendly, suitable for an audience unfamiliar with the topic, and ready for insertion into a PowerPoint slide. I'm asking it to be beginner friendly. So regardless of whether you are an expert in vertical farming or this is your first introduction, you should be able to understand what the slide is about. And then I'm also asking ChatGPT to write it in a way that's easy for me to copy and paste it into Google Slides or PowerPoint. And then lastly, the slide should have a clear title, highlighting the main points and mention any subsequent steps if relevant. And immediately, we have our title right at the top, and you can't miss it. Advantages of vertical farming versus traditional farming. I think that's suitable for the slide that we're creating. We have our table. What is the aspect? Vertical farming, traditional farming. Here are all of the different things that it's looking at when it's comparing and contrasting both styles of farming. So this is great. I would copy this and I'd put it into Google Slides. Actually, this is a little bit too long. I wouldn't be able to put this into Google Slides. It's kind of like information overload. So I would kind of pick and choose what's the most relevant based on what I'm looking to do. And then I would copy those tables and go from there. And then lastly, we have our next steps. The slide kind of feels incomplete. And with ChatGPT 4, you can actually have it build a diagram for you. If you wanted a bar graph, you could have it build that. A pie chart, it would build that all for you. And you would just copy and paste that or screenshot it and add it to your Google slide. Now 3.5, the free version, it won't do that, but you can ask it for recommendations on what to do. Like, how would I improve this PowerPoint slide? And it may recommend that we build a graph. Here, I'm asking, how can we improve this slide? Is there anything we can expand upon or reduce for clarity and conciseness? How about any charts or graphs? And let's see what it says. So it's already making the recommendations. It's not just stopping at making the recommendations. It's actually acting on it. So therefore, I mean, if we like the new output, we can either combine it with the old one or ask ChatGPT to combine it with the old one, or we can just copy this and add it to our PowerPoint slide. So for our next prompt, we're leveraging ChatGPT's ability to brainstorm ideas. So let's take a look. We're asking it to provide 25 niche ideas for an affiliate marketing website targeting the United States, primarily using Amazon affiliates. Focus on affordable products with the potential for high sales volume, and please include an explanation for each niche and strategies to capitalize on them. So just like with past prompts, we're really focused on the specifics. We didn't just ask ChatGPT to provide us with a list of 25 ideas for affiliate marketing websites. we're narrowing our focus by asking it to look at the United States and specifically items that would be found on Amazon Marketplace. We're also saying focus on affordable products with the potential for high sales volume. So we're not going after big ticket items like a brand new laptop or a cell phone. We're focused on something smaller, maybe lipstick or other forms of makeup. Please include an explanation. So I don't want it to just give us a list of website names or a niche. I want it to explain why it gave us that recommendation, and then also tell us how we could capitalize on them. Is there anything that we should look out for? Is there a growing trend that we should know about? Let's see what the output is. So you can start to see that ChatGPT is really phenomenal at brainstorming ideas as long as you give it specifics. If you just give it, provide me with 25 ideas for a birthday party, well, is it for an adult? Is it for a man, a woman? Is it for a child? Do they like X-Men? Do they like Barbie? Do they like Tonka trucks? You really have to specify what you're looking for, because if you don't, ChatGPT is really just kind of guessing. So this next prompt is near and dear to my heart because I love traveling, and I definitely love traveling to Italy. Despite my last name, that's where my family comes from, and I try to go back whenever I have a chance. So I'm asking ChatGPT to build me a hypothetical 10-day itinerary for 2 people starting in Rome and ending in Venice. The itinerary should focus on historic buildings for exploration and art galleries / museums. So again, we're focusing on the specifics. Now, if you wanted to take it another step further, you could say which art movement or time period you're interested in, and ChatGPT will annotate that. Recommend train transportation for city hopping and suggest hotel accommodations. Highlight key landmarks in each city, suggest cities to visit en route, inform about local customs, and ensure the daily budget doesn't exceed $300. All right, so day 1, we're arriving in Rome. That's great. Obviously we have to start there. We're having a dinner at a local trattoria, which is, fine. Budget around $40 per person. That's actually quite high. I would recommend it's closer to 20-ish, depending on where you are. We're going to explore ancient Rome on day 2. So again, it took note of the fact that I told it I really like exploring historic landmarks. And let's see if it's also recommending museums. So we have a trip to the Vatican City, which is great because the Vatican Museum is the largest museum in Italy, and it's fantastic. It's absolutely beautiful, and I love visiting it. So I'm glad that ChatGPT included that detail. And you can kind of see that it's done a really great job. Now, depending on your style of travel, you may want to tell ChatGPT, this is just way too much. I only want to visit 3 cities. So maybe it goes Rome to Florence to Venice. Or maybe you're okay with spending less time in Rome. So in that case, maybe you take a detour to Pisa when you're closer to Florence. And then from Florence, you go to Bologna, and then from Bologna to Venice. So it's all about, again, specifying what you're looking for and kind of refining ChatGPT based on its last prompt. So for this next prompt, it's just a really simple one. We're building a pros and cons list of space exploration. And this is something that ChatGPT really excels at. So let's take a look. Now, I specifically didn't use a great prompt. If you've watched the previous clips up to this point, I've told you to be very specific in what you're looking for. But in this instance, I was just very broad, and I was expecting to get a list similar to what these bolded sections are, but just that, a bulleted list of the bolded sections. But this did a really great job. It's giving us the idea, and then it's giving us a breakdown of what the idea is. So for each pro, it's explaining why it's a pro. And then for each con, it explained why it's a con. And this is a great way to break down a really difficult topic into a digestible format. So for this next prompt, I actually recommend using it at your own discretion. While ChatGPT is good, it's not great in certain regards. ChatGPT 4 is better in this specific prompt, but 3.5 can be a little iffy. And I'm going to ask it to provide me with scientific research backing up how many hours people should get for an optimal night's rest. And I want it to reference sleep studies. Now, what you should know is if ChatGPT doesn't know something, it will just kind of fabricate the story, if you will. And it will look like it's accurate and it's factual because it will provide you with a link. Sometimes that link is broken, it doesn't actually go anywhere. Sometimes it will provide an annotation for where it came from, and when you try to look up that study, it doesn't exist. But other times, it will give you a really great idea on where you can start to look yourself. So let's take a look at what the output is. So for this prompt, we actually didn't get what we were looking for. We were looking for scientific studies. I was thinking more along the lines of, this is a title, here's the authors, here's a little blurb, and more information. What this did was it gave us a breakdown of how much sleep each person needs depending on their age. So it's a good answer, but it wasn't exactly the answer that I was looking for. So I'm going to regenerate and we're going to move on from there. All right, so this is already better. It's telling you that it crawled the National Sleep Foundation and it found its recommendations for each age group and how many hours of sleep they need. Here's another one referencing the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, the National Institute of Health, the NIH, and these are all very reputable locations, although I don't know what sleep duration and mortality is. It sounds like it's a very specific study. So again, when you're looking at these things, you want to double check. Don't just take ChatGPT's word for it. Definitely do not copy this and put it into anything that you're going to share with anyone else where you may be graded, or if it's client focused or anything related to your work. Always double check when you're asking for this type of information. This next prompt is one that I use all the time for my articles. Please provide me with feedback on the writing I provided below. My audience is art enthusiasts and travelers interested in art and art history, and my tone is education. So I'm giving ChatGPT some context for what I'm providing it. This is my audience, and this is the tone that I'm going for. Double check my grammar and punctuation. Lastly, please provide me with any other additional feedback you may have. Now, ChatGPT has given us a really great list of ways that we can improve our article. It's telling me that I can be a little more descriptive of the artwork. So what am I seeing and what the viewer who's looking at it for the first time should be looking for? Because there are multiple theories about this particular painting, I could go into a variety of different interpretations of it. That way the user gets a little bit more context. We get down to grammar and punctuation, and this is very straightforward. This is the mistake you made, and this is how you improve it. So you could just simply copy and paste this into your article. So again, ChatGPT is a really valuable asset when you're writing an article and need a little bit more editorial insights and further refinement. We're asking ChatGPT to become our mentor. In this particular prompt, I'm telling it that I'm applying to colleges and I need to find out what majors to pursue. Here is a list of the hobbies that I'm most interested in, and I've included writing, finance, tutoring, and digital marketing. Can you give me 5 majors that feature a cross-relation between at least 2 of my hobbies? So I don't want it to just take a look at digital marketing and tell me to apply to a marketing major. I want it to look at both writing and digital marketing and give me a major that would suit both of those hobbies. Just looking at this list, ChatGPT did a really great job of combining two of our hobbies in order to find a major. The first one is marketing communications. This major combines elements of writing and digital marketing, and you're going to learn how to craft effective marketing messages and campaigns while also gaining knowledge of digital marketing strategies. So it understood that we have a skill set in writing, and we also have an interest in learning more about digital marketing, and so it found a major that would combine the two. I took it one step further and I said to ChatGPT that I'm going to pursue a major in marketing communication. Can you provide me a list of all of the different professions I'd find within this field? It gave us a breakdown of a bunch of different roles that we would find, such as a marketing manager, a brief description, and also what they would use in a day-to-day. This is just one example of how ChatGPT could offer mentorship advice for someone first starting out. I previously said that one of the best ways to interact with ChatGPT is to ask it for more information. You could ask it, do you understand? You could ask it, is there a way that we could expand on this area? In this prompt, we're preemptively asking ChatGPT to take a look at the project that we're working on. In this case, I'm writing an essay on the Venetian Renaissance. Please provide me with a list of commands that I can ask you regarding the writing and editing phases of my work. With this information, ChatGPT was able to break down our prompt into certain segments. It's saying, I can help you in research assistance, and these are the prompts that you would use. I can help you in content enhancement. So if you've already written the article, these are the ways that I can help you there. I can also help you in editing and proofreading. Now, again, this is just one of the many ways that ChatGPT can take something that you originally gave it and further refine it so that you get the most optimal output. This prompt is probably the most powerful one that we've covered so far because it's asking ChatGPT to take any prompt that we provide it and make it even better. I'm telling ChatGPT that I want you to become my prompt persona with the aim of helping me create the best possible prompt. This prompt will be used by you, ChatGPT, and will follow this process. Your initial response will ask about the prompt's topic. Based on the input, you'll provide a revised, clear, and concise prompt, suggestions to enhance it, questions for any necessary additional information, and then we're going to iterate on this prompt until we get the output that we ultimately desire. I give it a very basic prompt. I want to improve the conversions on my homepage. And it's telling me that this is how we can further refine it. So then my next prompt was, your task is to provide me with a list of ways I can improve my page, specifically for CRO purposes. Also provide me with any ideas you may have for lead gen, including quizzes and/or tools. And now it's going to take what I have and it's going to make it the most optimal version so that we get an even better output. Its response is, please provide a detailed list of actionable strategies and recommendations to enhance the conversion rate of my homepage for my website at URL. Now, if you're on ChatGPT 4, you could just insert the URL and it will crawl the page and give you all of the answers you're looking for. Because we're on 3.5, we're going to have to copy and paste the content of the page and drop it into this window. Include both design and content related suggestions. Additionally, suggest creative lead generation ideas such as quizzes or interactive tools that can be integrated into the homepage to boost user engagement and capture leads effectively. So again, my initial prompt was, I just want to improve the conversions of my homepage, and now we have this even better version of that prompt. Now, I'm not going to continue with the iterative process, but I recommend that you do until you get something that you believe is going to give you the output that you desire. Thanks for taking this ChatGPT introduction course with me. If you have any feedback or if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer as many as I can. If you want to continue learning more about ChatGPT, please subscribe. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs up anyway. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, this is Todd.